Hello, Jenil. Oh,
Hey Susie, how's it going? Good afternoon
yeah,
over there.
good. I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I was really looking forward to our conversation. So yeah, I can't wait to ask you questions and learn a lot of things from you. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Beautiful.
And I want to tell my viewers that Susie is a naturopath, qualified naturopath, and she is a mother as well. So Susie, can you tell us apart from that a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, okay. So I am a mother of four and we live in Brisbane in Australia. We moved here about, I think 3 or 4 years ago from Mackay. And yes, I studied when I became a naturopath. That's when my son became dysregulated. We moved from Mackay to Brisbane, and yeah, we'll talk more about it, but that was the
Oh,
start of our journey, our ADHD journey.
got it. And what does it mean, like ADHD in layman's term, Susie?
So my perspective is that ADHD is a neurotype, and so it's just a brain type. It's been around for a long time. So often if our children have it, we'll have it, our parents have got it, our grandparents, most likely had it. However, it comes with gifts and it comes with challenges when we're dysregulated. And today's society is causing dysregulation because in order for our brains to work well, we need exercise, we need good food. The screen time can actually disrupt it. Stress disrupts it. We need good sleep. And so there's a lot of factors that are causing dysregulation. And that's why it appears that there's a lot more ADHD around today. Like everyone is saying, oh, seems like everyone's got ADHD
Yeah,
today.
that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's been around and I didn't actually realize I had it until 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, when it became an issue for my son. So I didn't really know much about ADHD until that point in time. And so I think a lot of mothers, dads, people are the same until it shows up in their children, then they recognize it in themselves, and then there's this snowball.
It has to do with attention, right? Like
So
you.
it's called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. That's
Mhm.
what it stands for in the medical term. However, that is very misleading because it presents very differently in people. So not everybody has a problem with attention. Not everyone is hyperactive. So a lot of it does present differently. It is so it isn't an issue with executive function when we are dysregulated. So there's a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, and that is often smaller. They have found that in ADHD. And this is where our executive function occurs. So things like being organized and focusing and things like that, organization happens in this part of the brain. However, there are things that can help that expand that part of the brain, things like loving connection. So there's a lot of ways that we can support this. And the ADHD brain it's like it's got a lot of more networks firing, if you like. It's not linear.
Mhm.
So it's like there's all these networks firing at the same time. We can create connections, and that's where the creativity comes in because everything isn't linear. It's sort of all going on, and that's where we can get that overwhelm can come from. And when kids are in school, they can find it difficult to work within the box, which is our school
Mhm.
system.
Got
And
it.
even Albert Einstein, he is thought to have had ADHD and he failed at school because
That's
it
right.
didn't actually suit his brain type. So I think it actually says more about the school system than the ADHD brain, seeing as he is considered, one of the most prominent geniuses
Hmm.
that we've recognized. So, yeah.
Oh, and can we give like normally you and I are talking, so can you recognize it that I have ADHD or not?
So I haven't recognized it in you, like right now. I would
Okay.
need to, but certain people, like I can recognize it in. Often if people are a little bit scattered, if they're jumping here, there, everywhere,
Okay, got it.
or there's certain traits that you can recognize. And a person with ADHD will often recognize it in someone else.
Hmm.
And but it can take a little bit of time to get to know them. You're not going to just meet someone and say, "Oh, you've got ADHD," unless perhaps they're very dysregulated, and then you might pick it up.
Got it.
So, yeah. Um, yeah, so you're not necessarily going to pick that up straight away. It was interesting when it came to me that I had ADHD, and this is a story for a lot of people. I remember saying to a friend in clinic, I said, I think I might have ADHD. She said, "Oh, you think?" Because it had been really obvious to her for a long time. So
Oh,
often it can be obvious to other people
okay.
before it becomes obvious to you. And yeah, I've had that conversation as well. I know that a woman I was talking to, it was very obvious to me she had ADHD, and she was just starting on that journey of thinking perhaps maybe she did. And to
Okay.
me, it was very obvious. So yeah, it can be very obvious, but not
Interesting.
all the time
And
because
how
it
did
does
um,
present very differently.
and what were your symptoms, Susie, that you felt like I have an ADHD?
So for me, there are a lot of challenges. I think so. It's interesting. It didn't actually occur to me till I was in clinic, and I used to get in trouble from my clinic supervisor for interrupting her. And interrupting is a really big trait of people with ADHD because
Oh,
they get really excited. So someone will start talking and then their brain's going a million miles an hour and
hmm.
they'll jump in.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
it's not because they're being rude, and it's not because we're not interested in what the other person's saying. We just get really excited and we want to validate what they're saying. We want to add our experience to what they're saying. And so that was a really great awareness for me because I didn't even realize that I did it. But now that I have that awareness, I've actually noticed my whole family does it. So sitting around the dinner table, everyone's interrupting. Yeah. So it's about creating that awareness. And then you, once you create the awareness, then you can, prevent it. You can hold yourself back, wait for the person to finish. But that is a big one.
So I feel like it has to do with being volatile, wavering of mind. You cannot hold your horses, that kind of things, where you need
Sorry,
to
you can't do what?
like you cannot hold your horses. You have to say out the things. You cannot have the patience to wait for your turn. Is that one of the symptoms of ADHD?
One of the challenges of ADHD, and I mean, it's not even that big a deal, is that they will interrupt in a
Okay.
conversation. And you'll probably notice that you have friends that you'll be
Mhm.
saying something and they'll just jump in and they
Yeah.
will interrupt. And if you have it yourself, you might notice that you get very excited and you interrupt somebody before they've finished what they're saying. That's just one little thing. I do find it challenging to keep my house tidy and organized. I can procrastinate things. So for people who have studied, and so when I was studying, and a lot of ADHD people will find this, that they leave their assignments to the last minute. They can't get motivated like three
Mm.
weeks out.
Oh, got it.
And it's like the brain isn't even working properly 3 weeks out. It's like you can start trying to work on the assignment 3 weeks out, but we have this thing called hyperfocus. And hyperfocus is when we're really interested in something, passionate about something, our brain goes really fast, is really creative, and we can just snap that thing out. And so when we get the adrenaline of a due date, the hyperfocus can kick in. And if we're used to that hyperfocus, it can be very difficult to get an assignment done without the hyperfocus. It feels like you're walking through mud. And the other thing is we don't have a dopamine buffer. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter,
That I'm out.
and it actually allows us to do things, that are a little bit boring tasks that, the dopamine really helps with that. It's a feel-good transmitter. And people with ADHD are low in this transmitter. So they say we don't have this dopamine buffer. So it's very difficult for someone with ADHD to do a boring task without the adrenaline of, there's a due date or it has to be done. It's like if you've got ADHD, you can't motivate yourself to clean the house, but someone rings up and they say, I'm going to be around in an hour. Suddenly you can get that house clean. You race around and,
Got it.
you can get it done.
At the 11th hour kind of thing. Like you do it at the last moment.
Yeah, because you have that adrenaline. So with the ADHD medications, they give you dopamine, but they also give you that adrenaline, and there is a problem with that because it puts you into that fight or flight mode. So someone's coming around to visit, you're getting the house ready, gives you that kick of adrenaline. And the problem is when you're always in that fight or flight mode, then you're also looking for danger. And this is what creates the anxiety. So a lot of people with ADHD who go on the medications, they can focus better when they're on the medication, but then they're also in this fight or flight, which affects their digestion because we're either in fight or flight or we're in rest and digest. So it's called, so when we're in rest and digest, our body's relaxed, we can digest our food properly, and we can rest. So for someone that is either highly stressed or on medication and they're not moving into rest and digest, then they're not absorbing all the nutrients from their food. They're getting gut dysfunction. Right. And then that's actually exacerbating everything because there's actually a lot of deficiencies that come along with ADHD as well. Like iron is a big one that is often needs to be tested for.
Interesting. And a lot of people say that your gut is your second brain. So if you're feeling tense or something like that, it's gonna directly affect your digestive system. So
absolutely. We learn about at uni. There's they call it the gut-brain axis, and so it's like an axis between the gut and the brain. And so if we're stressed, that affects our gut, and if our gut health isn't good, then that's going to affect our brain.
Yeah,
it runs both ways. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So like a person who is completely diagnosed with ADHD, can that person get rid of that thing and be a normal one, like not normal, but come back to it?
Now, this is a really interesting question because when I first found out that my son had ADHD, I was doing a lot of research, and I actually found there is research to suggest that there's heavy metals on the brain in ADHD. I don't know whether this is true. However, I found this research, and the brain closes over at a certain age. I think it was like 14. So we didn't have a lot of time, right? And I suggested this detox to him. Okay, so this is at the very beginning of my journey. And he said to me, Mum, why would I want to get rid of my ADHD? He said, it's my superpower. And this is like over 12 months ago, before this superpower thing became big. He said, With ADHD, I believe I can do anything.
Oh, wow.
And people with ADHD, they do have these big visions. And as long as they're regulated, they do believe that they can do a lot. And that's why you get visionaries like Richard Branson.
Mm.
Richard Branson has ADHD, and he talks about the amount of exercise he needs to do because exercise is a natural treatment for ADHD to keep his brain regulated. So, yeah, so that actually got me thinking, because I was thinking like most people at that stage. And I'm like, okay, so if you don't want to get rid of ADHD, and then I did a lot more research, and what I realized is, because with my son, the year before we moved down to Brisbane, he was doing well at school. The teachers loved him. He had a great group of friends. He's, like, he was just a normal kid, and we had no signs of ADHD. I look back now and I think, yeah, he could be emotionally a bit sensitive, and I can see a few traits, but he wasn't struggling. But then when we came to Brisbane, I didn't realize for a little while, I got a call from his teacher. She said he was rude, he was disruptive. Then we found out he was failing. And then I realized she sent through an email, and all the emails were going to junk. I found out he'd been skipping class as well. And we had all this stuff going on. And I was actually realized at that point in time that everything he was presenting with, it was presenting like ADHD, because he couldn't focus in class. And it wasn't because he didn't want to. He actually didn't have the capacity to. And I couldn't understand how he could have ADHD this year, and yet he was fine the year before. And then I realized that's when I started finding out about the triggers for dysregulation. So there's a number of triggers that can cause dysregulation at any point in time. And if you can identify and address those triggers, you can become regulated again, and you can become successful again. So for him, stress was a big part of it. We'd moved down from Mackay. He was in a new school. Another part of it, he was very active when we were up in Mackay, and he'd stopped exercising. So that lack of exercise was another trigger for his dysregulation. So once we addressed those triggers, then we were able to bring him back again. And, so what it looked like, we created a plan together. I got up with him in the morning before school, and we went running and did the exercise equipment in the park. Mm-hmm. His brother, who was good at maths, we got him, tutoring him in maths. And I was giving him a rhodiola and ginseng supplement to help with focus at the time. However, and just being able to talk about it, he was able to, that stress was able to fall away. So he actually went, and we gave him incentive. We said to he and his brother, if you can get him up from, a D, like a fail in maths, to a B, we'll give you each $100. So he had incentive, because reward works really well, okay, with ADHD. And they said, that's fine. What if we can get him to an A? That's my other son. He's like, what if I can get him to an A? Do we get $200 each? And I was like, go for it. Because I was just like, yeah, sure. Just, go for it. Well, they worked together over the term, and he went and he did his exam. And when he came back, I said, how'd you go? He said, yeah, good. But he said that before the last exam that he failed. Anyway, he went along, and he was handed back his exam, and he got the second highest mark in the class. He got an A+. And then what that did is that gave him confidence. He actually realized there was nothing wrong with his brain. And see, confidence is another important part of ADHD. Once that confidence is eroded, see, often with an ADHD diagnosis, they believe that there's something wrong with them, and the confidence gets eroded. And then it's very hard to succeed. So it's about turning things around so that confidence is rebuilt. And that was actually a big part of rebuilding his confidence. He realized that he wasn't stupid. He realized he actually was smart. And so that helped, things turn around. And, like he's good now. We did go like in that period of dysregulation, it was challenging. He was hanging out with the wrong kids, and that would have been because his self-esteem was low as well. I had a knock on the door at 3 a.m. and it was the police. He was brought home by police at 3 a.m. in the back of a paddy wagon at 13. He was out skateboarding with his friend at the school. So he got suspended for skipping class. But now he's great.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. So when you say if someone's dysregulated, can they come back to regulation? Yeah, absolutely they can. It's just about identifying and addressing those triggers for dysregulation, building confidence, but it's also about that connection, that love and support and positivity. Because with ADHD, negativity totally crushes the ADHD person. So if you're trying to motivate someone with ADHD and you use negativity, it's not going to work. That's where reward works really well.
And I'm completely novice about this, Susie, if I tell you honestly. So I'm learning a lot about ADHD. But what I want to know is, like, can ADHD be a phase? Like, what I conclude from your son's story is that there was a phase where you changed the cities, and he had to adapt in a new school. So he was having some sort of issues. We all like sometimes we do that, right? Like if I go to a new job place, I would also have some sort of issues. So can it be a phase, the environment, and not ADHD itself?
No, it's ADHD, but the stress of that environment exacerbated the ADHD. And also the lack of exercise exacerbated the ADHD. And another interesting point is that he was 13. So hormones were exacerbating his ADHD as well.
Right.
And you'll notice that women going through perimenopause are all recognizing now that they have ADHD for the first time because the hormones are disrupting the ADHD. So puberty is a big time for ADHD to be recognized, and so is perimenopause, because hormones are another dysregulator.
Oh, okay. In that case, like when I was a child, Susie, if I tell you honestly, I was a completely different person. I was introvert, reticent, and I used to be crappy all the time. Although I was good at studies. So can this be the signs of ADHD at that time prior to 15 years ago or something?
Well,
I had a lot of digestive issues as well.
I mean, it's certainly, I guess, so there's certain challenges, that go with ADHD. And if you recognize a lot of these challenges, it certainly absolutely could be ADHD. So it's and I guess if you're looking at the positives as well, like whether you can, like, are you very creative? Where that creativity goes hand in hand. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be drawing. It's just that, you get different solutions and ideas and, big ideas
Yeah.
and things like that. And also, if you're talking about, the young version of you, was this due to being sensitive to rejection? Because rejection sensitivity, dysphoria, is actually another huge challenge of ADHD. So, yeah,
Yeah.
people with ADHD, they're just crushed by rejection and will avoid, certain things so as not to be rejected. And I think you might find people with ADHD can be good at meeting people and creating a good first impression. However, they don't have the follow through. Like, they can find it hard to make closer friends. And that is actually as a result of this rejection sensitivity. It's like in the moment when we meet someone for the first time, like we can be happy and, but then to actually follow that up, we're putting ourselves at risk
Mm.
of being rejected. So we can have a larger than life appearance. However, yeah, the rejection sensitivity can be quite big. Yeah.
And I guess this ADHD thing, this issue is quite modernized. Like, it's in Western countries. In India, we usually don't even know like this ADHD, I guess. We don't even talk about it. So, do we have the ADHD and we don't know it yet, or it's not there?
Okay, so what my answer would be is maybe your society is not as dysregulating as ours. So perhaps your diet is better for a start,
Yeah.
because the Western diet or the processed foods, it is so dysregulating. Just the number of children that I deal with that are addicted to chicken nuggets and don't want to eat anything else.
Mm.
So diet is a big dysregulator. And then there's I don't know whether, children in India are watching the same amount of screen time as
They do.
children they do. Yeah, because the screen times is very dysregulating as well. So I would definitely say that India would have as high levels, but perhaps it's not being, your teachers may be more tolerant. They may be more creative in the classroom, because where it's being picked up is it's being picked up in the classroom if children are disruptive, if they're not sitting still, because it is very difficult for a child with ADHD to sit down for, 6 hours a day.
Mm.
And it's very hard for them to focus on things that they're not really interested in as well.
Yeah.
So unless they're and you know what, you can be ADHD and you can be very academic. So if you've got an ADHD person with a big drive to succeed at school, then they're going to do really well. But if you have an ADHD person that isn't really interested in the school topics and isn't very passionate about succeeding at school, then they're going to struggle.
So in a nutshell, it has pros and cons of it, I guess.
Yeah, so the way I like to look at it is, if you have dysregulated ADHD, the challenges are disabling and they are overwhelming. And, you've got that inability to focus, you've got anxiety, you could have a whole host of things, disorganized. There's going to be a lot going on. However, if you become regulated, if you exercise, if you eat well, if you limit your screen time, particularly before bed, because the screen actually blocks melatonin for 2 to 4 hours. Yeah. So if they're on screens up until bed, then that's affecting their sleep. And if they're not getting enough sleep, and a lot of kids with ADHD do have sleep issues as well. So lack of sleep is going to exacerbate the dysregulation. And if they've got gut issues and all that sort of thing, that's all going to exacerbate it. But if you get that all sorted out and you create a plan and you move over to the regulation side, then you've got all the beautiful gifts of ADHD. You've got the creativity, you've got the charisma, you've got the out-of-the-box thinking, the high energy. There's so many. And you look at successful people, especially creative people, leaders that have ADHD, they're not successful in spite of their ADHD. They're actually successful because of it. You look at, Richard Branson, it's his creativity, his innovation, his charisma. They're all traits of ADHD. His high energy. They're all an important part of his success. You look at athletes, Michael Phelps,
Really?
the gymnast. What was her name? Can't think of it off the top of my head. But she's talked a lot about her. She was a great, it starts with an S. Simone Biles. Simone Biles, she's ADHD. Then there's Emma Watson, the actress.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Harry Potter. There's Will Smith, the actor.
Yeah.
And these are just ones that have spoken about their ADHD. There would be so many more because they're in a creative industry that have ADHD, but these are ones that are speaking about it.
Got it. Wow.
So a lot of, these people that are successful, it's because of their ADHD.
Really?
So it's about harnessing these ADHD gifts and minimizing the challenges. And that's all done through regulation and increasing confidence.
Makes sense.
Confidence is a big part of it. And this can get eroded in school.
Got it. And as long as you take the boxes like be it exercise, be it 8 hours of sleep, good diet, then you are good to go, whether you have ADHD or not. Is that so, Susie?
Well, it depends because you can be doing all those things, but if you have stress, a lot of stress in your life, like if you see stress is a big dysregulator, and so is trauma. So I've actually, dealt with people that they're like, my child's exercising, they eat well, they're sleeping well, they're still, and then we find out about, trauma, childhood trauma that they've had. So stress and trauma, that actually needs to be processed. That's going to need to be processed and dealt with. And if you can overcome, you can do the diet and things. But if the self-esteem is still low, then low self-esteem is also a dysregulator. So you've actually got to build self-esteem as well. So if you're coming from a place of dysregulation, it's not just a case of, like, obviously it's going to help to tick all those boxes and address all the triggers of regulation, dysregulation. However, you also need to address self-esteem. Self-esteem is very
complex, Susie. The thing is, what I was about to ask, like self-esteem, like if I talk, some people are introvert by nature, right? So usually I feel like their self-esteem is lower compared to people who are ambivert and extrovert. So in that,
sorry, what was that?
Like I'm talking about the characteristics of nature of people, like some are introvert, right? So
yeah.
So usually when I meet some introverts, because I was used to be a introvert, so at that time my self-esteem was quite low. So does it mean that I have to change my nature from being introvert to being ambivert or extrovert?
No, because I think that there are some people who are introverted who are happy within themselves. So it depends on the conversations they're having within their head. All right. And this is where self-awareness, self-compassion can come into the picture, because if we're having conversations with ourselves where we're not good enough, we're tearing ourselves down, we're stupid, okay, this is dysregulating.
Yeah.
But if we choose to spend time alone and we're happy and we think that we're very intelligent and like we just enjoy spending time alone, we enjoy spending time in nature, we just like to have a few close friends, but we're happy with who we are, then that's regulating. So you don't have to be an extrovert. You just have to be happy with who you are.
And just to play a devil's advocate, Susie, like stress in today's life, it's kind of inevitable, right? Whether you are like, regardless of age, be if you are 10 or you are 50, stress is for everyone. So how can one, tackle this situation or this stress thing?
Well, obviously, we need a certain amount of stress in our life just to get out of bed. You know what I mean? Like there's stress and there's stress.
Yeah.
So the stress, there's stress that's dysregulating is something that's raising our cortisol.
Yeah.
It's raising our adrenaline.
Mm,
It's taking us out of that rest and digest, and it's putting us into fight or flight, into that high anxiety mode. So, and I think it's the way we deal with stress. So if we're actually taught to, if we've got someone we can talk to, and this is where connection is very important, that, if it's us or our children or whoever, that they can actually talk about their stress, because just talking about your stress can actually lower it.
yeah.
So it's having outlets for your stress. It's
Mm,
having ways, and this is where exercise is very good. Exercise is great, and using different ways to bring down your cortisol, whether it be having a beautiful bath, a massage, getting out in nature,
yeah. All the.
swimming is great for bringing down cortisol.
Oh.
So, and deep breathing. Deep
Mm,
breathing is amazing for bringing down cortisol. So, yes, stress is inevitable, but we need to be able to have outlets for our
mm.
stress. And
And
it's the levels of stress that we have.
and in moderation, it's good also, right? If you have
Yeah,
stress.
yeah. Oh, like stress motivates us.
Yeah.
Stress, like we can't get rid of all stress out of our lives. It's
Definitely.
just no, we can't. However, it's just making sure that we're not just living on adrenaline and cortisol, and that we have outlets for our stress.
Interesting. Wow.
And it's about giving people alternatives to medication. That's my biggest passion,
Hmm.
because what I've seen is that, children are disruptive in class. The teacher says take them to the doctor. I think they've got ADHD. They go to the doctor. Now, they used to actually have to go and get a psychoanalysis from there, but now the doctors can actually say you've got ADHD, and they can diagnose it, and they can prescribe for it. So suddenly you've got a child on a stimulant medication that will have long-term impacts on their sleep, their eating, because it can take away their appetite, their heart, it increases their heart rate. So if they're on this medication for a long time, that can lead to heart disease. It can actually decrease the absorption of calcium. So what are their bones going to be like in, 20, 30 years' time? There are implications. And while the medications may give some relief to some of the challenges, they're not treating the cause. They're not creating
Carry on, Susie, as you are telling.
Yes. So I was really just talking about the fact that um the medications for ADHD are being prescribed without any alternatives given. And I don't judge anyone for using medications. However, I think that the risks should be weighed up. And I don't think people are even being given any information about the risks. It's like you have a diagnosis, here's a medication, and off you go.
And
And
are
it's creating
these
problems.
medications same like antidepressants, or those are different things?
They're different. So
Okay.
they use things. Have you heard of speed?
No.
Have you heard of a drug speed? No. Okay. So they have stimulant and they have non-stimulant medications. The stimulant medication, it helps with dopamine and adrenaline. So the dopamine can help people focus and think clearly. However, the adrenaline is putting them into that fight or flight and increasing the anxiety. And it also reduces appetite because when
Got
we're
it.
in fight or flight, we don't eat. You know what I mean? Like, because
Uh,
if you're
yeah.
running away from a tiger, you don't want to get hungry, do you? So we're not hungry, and it also affects sleep. So it can make it difficult to sleep as well. And you're looking for danger, which increases the anxiety.
Mm. In a way, can we compare it to coffee? Like it increases your focus, at the same time it decreases your hunger, mitigates your hunger.
So coffee, I do not recommend coffee because it increases cortisol.
Really?
So with ADHD, we can be high cortisol already, and we're wanting to lower that cortisol. And coffee can also deplete us of nutrients that we need. So coffee can actually strip nutrients that we need as well. So I prefer to use cacao, which is the raw form of cocoa, and I'll have that in placement of coffee, and it still gives you that little bit of stimulation. However, it's full of nutrients like magnesium and things, and so it's supporting our brain, and you won't get the high cortisol, you won't get the crash, and you're not getting the depletion of nutrients.
Yeah, that crash is terrible, by the way. Yeah, you are really high, and then once the effects
Yeah,
starts
yeah.
mitigating, you feel like I want to hit the hay, just like that.
Yeah, so I don't recommend coffee for ADHD.
Got it. And when you say about like the healthy benefits, like not the healthy benefits of coffee, do you mean the coffee with milk and sugar, or do you mean black coffee, Susie? Or coffee
Oh,
in general?
I don't recommend coffee at all
Okay, got it.
because I don't recommend it at all because coffee itself increases that cortisol, and it
Mhm.
also causes the body to become depleted of certain nutrients.
Oh,
So that's why I suggest cacao, like cacao, however you would like to pronounce it.
mhm.
And that's just the unrefined form of cocoa, like that's in chocolate.
And
Yeah.
Susie, like in context of black coffee, I'm not sure whether I recently watched on your Google itself. Like I did some. I'm a big coffee person, but I tend to
Yeah.
consume black coffee and health
Yeah.
conscious person as well. So when it comes to black coffee, it helps you get rid of fatty liver. Then it prevents diabetes. Those things are there on the Google. So,
There's lots of things you can find on Google,
hmm,
and and there are a lot of benefits, of coffee, and people are always coming up with, benefits of coffee, and they're coming up with benefits of red wine as well. You can
got it,
find you can find benefits, for a lot of things. And, coffee in moderation is fine.
got it.
However, I wouldn't be drinking coffee as a health elixir.
Mm, makes sense.
I would be drinking coffee in moderation if you like it. However, too much coffee is going to be increasing your cortisol. It's going to be affecting your sleep,
Yeah.
and you are going to get that crash.
Mm,
And I think too much coffee, yeah, can be dysregulating.
makes sense. Okay.
Mm. You're wanting to calm the nervous system.
Yeah, that's right.
So with ADHD, you'll often find that we don't gravitate toward things that are calming. Like for a person with ADHD, they will often look at meditation and think, oh my gosh, I'd rather go and do a high intensity workout any day of the week than sit down and meditate because it's boring. It's
Mhm.
non-stimulating.
Got it.
However, it can be extremely beneficial for people with ADHD to meditate, like even if because it's calming that nervous system down. And
True.
that's what we need to do. And that's where the deep breathing can help as well.
And Susie, I'm also a big advocate of taking ice baths because like
Oh, ice baths, yeah.
when I do that, I feel like calm as cucumber. I feel like everything happens, go with the flow kind of thing. Nothing bothers me. I don't give a damn about anything. So, have you tried it?
I
Ice.
do. I actually do ice baths.
Okay.
And it is actually another way of stimulating the vagus nerve. And the
Mhm.
vagus nerve is what puts us into that rest and digest. So it lowers cortisol. So getting into the ice bath will lower cortisol. Yeah.
Got it. So it's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? It has no cons of it.
Yeah, look, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good for the immune system. There are, there's always going to be people saying there's something bad. And I don't know, maybe if you have heart issues, it may not be good. I
Mhm.
don't know that it's, good for everybody.
Got it.
However, I do enjoy a nice bath, and I do think that there are health benefits of it. But I'm sure if you look hard enough, you will find that someone's saying it's not good, it's not good for you as well. Yeah.
And what kind of workout do you do? Like, are you into like natural workout, walking and all, or are you into lifting, doing yoga?
So I've always been a runner my whole life, and without knowing that I had ADHD, I knew that my brain worked better when I ran. I go through phases of running now. I like to walk the dogs. I like to swim. However, recently I've taken up Pilates,
Mhm.
and I do that. I think I need, getting a bit older, I need that strength work.
Right.
So yeah. So I work at Pilates I like walking, swimming, and Pilates. Yeah.
Hmm. And speaking of dogs, I'm also a big dog person. But nowadays, I often see that dogs are becoming hyper, even the pet dogs. I'm not sure whether you have experienced it yourself or not. But dogs, like earlier, they were kind of like a part of family. But we now often see that, a dog has bitten like the family member or something. Have you come across those kind of news, Susie?
Well, yeah, not so much. Like I know a lot of people are being bitten by other people's dogs.
Yeah.
And we actually yeah, my son was actually very badly bitten by a friend's dog, well, a
Okay.
couple of them, years ago. And I think, yeah, I don't know about that. I think, there can be jealousies and things. I'm not sure. I think people with ADHD do love animals. And I will often, talk to a dog coming along the road and totally ignore the owner. Like,
I
I
do this
think
thing.
yeah, I think we are drawn to animals. And I think, I don't know whether that's something to do with our rejection sensitivity. Like dogs are just so loving. You know what I mean? They're just all loving. I don't know what it is, but yeah, people with ADHD are often drawn to animals and love animals.
Okay. And what else do you like to do in your downtime, Susie?
Oh, I love the beach. I've used to always live near a beach. I don't live near the beach anymore, but we do have parks around, but I will go down. I live in Brisbane, so sometimes go down to the Gold Coast or the Sunshine Coast. Um, I I think walking, swimming, Pilates, spending time with my family is, what I enjoy doing.
And what kind of things like does it ever happen to you that you are on the verge of burnout?
Ah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm finding I never used to like meditation. I used to stay away from meditation, but I'm finding that meditation is great for me. And I try and do a 10-minute morning meditation every day. And what that does for me is it actually puts you into a positive mindset because it's about setting up your mind for positivity. Because if we're looking for the positive things, we're going to find them. If we're looking for the negative things, we're going to find them. And ADHD is a neurotype that thrives on positivity. And it doesn't take much to bring us crashing down. And this is what I like to tell parents. Be very careful before giving negative feedback to your children.
Right.
See if you can have a workaround. You don't want to build them up necessarily if they haven't done something good, but you can have honest conversations and have conversations with them that perhaps get them talking about what they've done, but make sure they know it's not because they're a bad person or anything like that. We all make mistakes, and I think it's very important for us as parents to acknowledge that we make mistakes as well,
True.
and making a mistake isn't a reason to feel bad about yourself. So, and this is where we need to teach self-compassion. We need to teach our children to be having kind conversations with themselves. And for parents, modeling is so important. So, kids will only learn 20% of what we tell them. They learn 80% through what we do. So, if you want your children to be regulated, you actually need to embody these tools yourself. And so often you've got dysregulated children, you've got dysregulated parents. And so, the parents need to be taking care of their diet, their exercise, their stress management. How much time are they spending on the screen? When are they getting to bed? Because the kids are watching this.
Interesting. And the last but not the least, Susie, in general, no, not in context of you being as a naturopath or uh,
Yeah.
having with this experience about ADHD. In general, if you had to give some sort of life advice to people who are watching this podcast, what sort of life advice would you like to give?
I think the best life advice for people is to live with gratitude.
Hmm.
Because when you live with gratitude and you're focusing on gratitude, it comes from the heart, and you are going to attract more good things into your life. If you're focusing on what's wrong in your life, you're going to attract that. So
Yeah,
if you can come from a place of gratitude, you're going to attract more beautiful things in your life. So I think gratitude.
interesting. Wow. Yeah, it's funny that you said that. But the other day, I was listening to Mel Robbins' podcast, and the entire
Mhm.
podcast about was this thing. A psychologist was there, and she told that the benefits of making a list of gratitude, like once in a week, can have manifold benefits. So I've started doing it. I've been doing it for like a 1 week, and yeah.
Beautiful. And
Uh,
how have you been finding it? Have you been feeling in that week?
Yeah, yes, I do. Yes,
Yeah,
although it's
beautiful.
been only 1 week, but I can see the results.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it comes back to our brain is a magnet. There's a universal law of magnetism, and there's also a law of vibration. And so whatever energy, whatever frequency we're at, Like happiness is a high vibration, anger, sadness is a low vibration. And when we're happy, we can attract abundance into our lives. When we're angry and low vibration, we're actually going to attract problems into our life. So, yeah, it's about always trying to, I guess, follow your joy, follow what makes you happy. And then that's going to bring more good things into your life, raise your vibration, and that's going to help your regulation as well.
Got it. And one more thing, Susie, like I read it somewhere, you cannot be happy all the time, you have to experience all the emotions.
And this is actually, this is actually very important, because we need to validate all our emotions. And if we feel sad and we suppress it, that sadness is just going to stay there. It's like a child that goes, mum, 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 or dad, 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 dad. And until you actually say, yes, what do you want? They're not going to go away. And it's the same with our emotions. It's very important for us to experience them, validate them, and let them pass on.
Wow, profound. Now, okay, on that note, Susie, I guess I won't bother you with any other questions.
Well, thank you. It's been lovely, Jenil.
Yes, thanks for this thought-provoking podcast. Thank you for being here. I'll ping you again in the future, if possible. If you are available, we're going to have a podcast part 2 as well.
Okay, lovely.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.